So the estrogen is synthesized and secreted mainly by the ovarian follicle. So for one particular hormone that is secreted, there will be one particular receptor that is present on the tissue. So these erythropoietin hormone, they actually stimulates erythropoiesis, or it stimulates the formation of the red blood cells. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to the last session of this chapter, that is chemical coordination and integration. I am Dr. Divya, biology faculty, Vidyashram Pre-University College, Mysore, Temple of Excellence. In the previous session of this chapter, we had discussed about the hormones that are secreted by the adrenal glands that are present on the kidney and hormones that are secreted by the pancreas. In today's session, let us discuss about the hormones that are secreted by the gonads. So when I say gonads, it means the hormones that are secreted by the female ovary and the male testes. And also we shall study about the mechanism of the hormone action. So to begin with, let us study about the hormones that are secreted by the testes. So we all know that the testis is a pair of reproductive structure that is present in males. So it is present, the pair of testes is present in the scrotal sac outside the abdomen of the male individual. So therefore, they are responsible for secreting some of the male related hormones such as the androgens, the testosterone and all that. So what are their functions? We shall look into. So testes, they actually perform two important functions. One is they are the primary sex organs in the case of male because they produce the semen or the sperms. And apart from that, they also function like an endocrine gland wherein they secrete the hormone which helps in spermatogenesis or which helps in the formation of sperms in the testis. So that is why testis is considered to perform dual function or two functions. And testis is composed of seminiferous tubules and stromal or interstitial tubules. And apart from that, the Leydig cells or the interstitial cells are also present in the intertubular spaces of the testis, and these Leydig cells are the ones that actually produce a group of hormones called as androgens, which are nothing but mainly testosterone. So testosterone is one such androgen that is produced by the testis, especially the Leydig cells of the testis. So the Leydig cells of the testis is the one that actually produces this particular androgen hormone, that is the testosterone. So we can find the testis, that is a pair of testes that is located in the male individuals. So this was about the hormones. So let us study in detail about the hormone androgen, which is secreted by the Leydig cells that are present in the testis. So androgen, their main function is to regulate the development, the maturation and function of the male accessory sex organs. So in the testis, there are some accessory sex organs that are present, or that sac-like structure that is there. Apart from that, there are various accessory organs that are present like the epididymis, the vas deferens. So vas deferens is the tube-like structure that connects the testis to the penis. And then we have the epididymis, the seminal vesicles and the prostrate gland, urethra, etc. So if all these organs has to function properly, their main function is to secrete certain hormones and help in the production of sperms and also carrying the hormones in the male reproductive organ, that is the testis. So for all that, these androgens are very, very important. And these hormones, they also stimulate muscular growth. They stimulate the growth of the facial hair, the axillary hair, and the aggressiveness that is there in the male, that they will stimulate, and also they stimulate the low pitch of voice, etc. So once the male matures, his voice tends to change. It is mainly because of this particular hormone, that is the androgen. So this is the function of the androgen. Apart from maintaining a proper function of the testicular apparatus, they also help in, or the male accessory sex organs, they also help in providing a good muscular stature to the male. They also help in the growth of the facial and the axillary hair in male, and they also are responsible for the aggressiveness character in male and also the low pitch of voice in male. So this is about the different functions. And apart from that, androgens, they also play a very important role wherein they stimulate the process of spermatogenesis, or they bring out the process of spermatogenesis. So spermatogenesis, the genesis means something new being formed. Here what new is being formed? Sperms are being formed. So therefore, for the formation of the sperm, these androgens play a very important role. And apart from that, androgens also act on the central nervous system. So central neural system is nothing but the brain, the spinal cord and all that. They act on that, and also they thereby influence the male sexual behavior, which is nothing but the libido of the male. And these hormones produce certain synthetic effects on the protein and carbohydrate metabolism as well. So that is why the metabolic rates or the characteristics in male and female is completely different, because females, we do not have this particular androgen in us or the testosterone in us. If testosterone is more in female, it will lead to problems such as hoarseness in voice, then excessive facial hair development, all that. Therefore, this testosterone is one of the androgen hormone that is particularly limited for the male, because it is produced in the testes of the male. So this was about the androgen hormone. So moving further, we shall study about the hormone secreted by one more gonad, which is the ovary. So ovary is present in the females. So here females also have a pair of ovary. You can see here 2 ovaries are present. So 2 ovaries or a pair of ovaries. So these ovaries are located in the abdomen, and ovary is the primary female sex organ, and it produces one ovum during each menstrual cycle. So once a woman reaches the reproductive age and she gets her menstrual cycle, during that time 2 ovaries are there. Each ovary will produce one ovum, and if that one ovum has to get produced, then different hormones are involved. What are those? We shall look into. So apart from that, the ovary also produces a group of steroid hormones which are called as estrogen and progesterone. So estrogen and progesterone are very important in the females for maintaining a good reproductive system. So the ovary is composed of ovarian follicles, small follicular-like structures, and apart from that, they are also made up of the stromal tissues. So I told you the ovary secretes 2 important hormones, that is steroid hormones. One is the estrogen and the progesterone, right? So the estrogen is synthesized and secreted mainly by the ovarian follicle. So what is the ovary made up of? It is made up of a group of small follicles, and also it is made up of the stromal tissue. The ovarian follicles that are there, they are the ones that are responsible for the synthesis of the estrogen. And after ovulation, the ruptured follicle that is there, the Graafian follicle that we call, which is the matured follicle, that will rupture open. So during that process of rupturing, that structure which is called as the corpus luteum, it secretes mainly progesterone. It secretes the hormone progesterone. So therefore, estrogen is important for the maturation of the follicle. Once the follicle rupture, then the corpus luteum actually produces the progesterone. It starts to secrete the progesterone. So we shall study in detail about the functions of the estrogens and the progesterone. So talking about estrogens. So estrogens, they have a wide variety of activities in the female reproductive system, wherein they stimulate the growth of the female reproductive organs, and they stimulate the various activities of the female secondary sex organs. They help in the development of the growing ovarian follicles, because if the follicles have to mature, then this estrogen is very important. And estrogen is actually produced by the follicles, right? And it also helps in appearance of the female secondary sex characters such as the high pitch, voice, etc. And also apart from that, it also helps in the development of the milk secreting glands or the mammary gland development. And estrogens are also responsible for regulating and maintaining the female sexual behavior, like how the sexual behavior is maintained by the androgens in the case of male. Just like that, here estrogen helps in maintaining the female sexual behavior. Next, talking about one more important hormone, that is the progesterone. So progesterone is a very important hormone to support pregnancy. So understand here, until the ovarian follicle matures and the rupture of the ovary takes place and the ovule is released, until then the estrogen gets produced. After that, from the ovum or the egg, corpus luteum, the progesterone will get produced, and this progesterone is very important for maintaining a healthy reproductive phase of a female and to support the pregnancy throughout the female individual. Progesterone also acts on the mammary glands, wherein it stimulates the formation of alveoli. So alveoli are nothing but the sac-like structures that are present in the mammary glands, which help in the production of milk and the storage of milk and production, and also it helps in the secretion of milk. So progesterone is important for maintaining a healthy pregnancy throughout, and not just that, it helps in the overall growth of the mammary glands, wherein it stimulates the mammary glands to form sac-like structures which help in storing milk and secreting the milk. So far we had studied about the secretions of various hormones by the glands that are present in the human body. Now let us start studying about the hormones that are secreted by other organs such as the heart, the kidney and the liver. So to begin with, let us see what are the hormones that are secreted by the heart. So a heart is made up of 4 chambers, right? That is the upper 2 atrial chambers and the lower 2 ventricular chambers. So the atrial wall of a heart is the one that secretes a very important peptide hormone, and it is called as the atrial natriuretic factor or the ANF. And this atrial natriuretic factor decreases the blood pressure. So what happens with this atrial natriuretic factor? So we had come across this term while studying about the circulation in human beings. So there also we studied that how the atrial natriuretic factor that are produced by the atrial walls of the heart, they help in the proper flow of blood in the blood vessel. So if the proper flow of blood in the blood vessels occur, then the blood pressure will decrease. So for that, this is very important. That is this particular hormone which is called as the atrial natriuretic factor. But what happens when the blood pressure increases? So when blood pressure increases, atrial natriuretic factor secreted, which causes dilation of the blood pressure. So therefore, this dilation of the blood pressure will reduce the blood pressure. So therefore, for maintaining a normal blood pressure of a human being, this hormone that is secreted by the atrial walls of the heart, which is called as the atrial natriuretic factor, is very important. Next, moving further, let us study about the hormones that are secreted by the kidney. So we had studied about the hormones that are secreted by the adrenal glands, which are present on top of each of the kidney, right? But we didn't know what are the hormones secreted by the kidney. So in kidney, there is presence of the juxtaglomerular apparatus. We had studied about this, right, in human excretory system, wherein the kidney is made up of millions of units of nephrons, and this nephron consists of the Bowman's capsule, the glomerular apparatus, the Henle's loop and all that. Apart from that, somewhere near the glomerular apparatus, there is a small part which is called as the juxtaglomerular cells of the kidney. And this juxtaglomerular cells, they also produce a peptide hormone which is called as erythropoietin. And as the name itself suggests, erythro means it has something to do with the red blood cells, right? So these erythropoietin hormone, they actually stimulates erythropoiesis, or it stimulates the formation of the red blood cells. So therefore, formation of red blood cells, or for the process of erythropoiesis, the juxtaglomerular cells that secrete a hormone called as erythropoietin hormone is very, very important. Next, talking about the hormones that are secreted by the gastrointestinal tract. So the endocrine cells that are present in the different parts of the gastrointestinal tract, they secrete 4 important peptide hormones which are called as gastrin, secretin, cholecytokinin, which is CCK, and gastric inhibitory peptide. So what are the functions of these hormones? Let us look into. So the function of gastrin. So gastrin acts on the gastric gland. Therefore, it stimulates the secretion of hydrochloric acid and pepsinogen. Both of these are very, very important in the process of digestion in the stomach. So therefore, the gastrointestinal tract secretes a hormone called as gastrin. That gastrin stimulates the secretion of the HCl acid and also the pepsinogen, which is important for digestion. What about secretin? So secretin is also secreted by the gastrointestinal tract, that is the endocrine cells present in the gastrointestinal tract, and they act on the exocrine pancreas, therefore stimulating the secretion of water and bicarbonate ions. So if the pancreas, that is if the exocrine of the pancreas has to secrete water and bicarbonate ions, then the secretion of secretin by the endocrine cells of the gastrointestinal tract is very, very important. Next, talking about the CCK hormone, that is cholecytokinin, or the CCK hormone. It acts both on the pancreas as well as the gallbladder, and it stimulates the secretion of various pancreatic enzymes, and it stimulates the gallbladder to secrete bile respectively. And both of these pancreatic enzymes and bile are also very, very important components of the digestion process. We had studied about this in human digestive system, right? So there is one more hormone that is secreted by the endocrine cells of the gastrointestinal tract, that is the gastric inhibitory peptide, and their main function is to inhibit the secretion of the gastric and the motility. And apart from that, there are also several non-endocrine tissues that secrete hormones which are called as the growth factors. And these factors, or that is the growth factors, are very, very important for the normal growth of the tissues and the repairing and regeneration of the cells in the tissue. So these are the functions of the hormones that are secreted by the gastrointestinal tract. Next, moving further, let us study about the mechanism of the hormone action. How exactly the hormones get secreted and how do they act upon a particular organ or a cell or a tissue. So the hormones, they produce their effects on the target tissues. So the hormones produced in a body, will it go and act on all the other organs? Say for example, the hormones produced by the gastrointestinal tract, wherein we studied that they produce various hormones which stimulates the production of HCl, pepsinogen, bile and all that, right? Now if they have to stimulate the production of HCl, pepsinogen, bile and all that, can they go and act on the kidney? No. Where should they go and act? They should go and act especially on the alimentary canal of the human or the digestive system of the human, right? So that is why they have a particular target organ or a target tissue onto which only they will go and act upon. Like how we taken the tablets or the drugs, right? They'll go and act upon that particular organ, targeting that particular organ to cure the particular disease or the pain. So just like that here, hormones, they produce their effects only on the target tissue. So how do they do that? They bind to specific proteins called hormone receptors located in the target tissue. So for one particular hormone that is secreted, there will be one particular receptor that is present on the tissue. So receptor means something that receives. So here something that receives, what it receives? It receives that particular hormone. So I have taken the example of this diagram that they have given in the NCERT textbook, wherein we have considered the example of a protein hormone. So say for example, FSH is one such protein hormone. FSH is nothing but the follicular stimulating hormone. So what it does, it helps in the, it stimulates the production of the follicle, the maturation of the follicle, the rupturing of the follicle and all that. So here, now this, when I say follicular stimulating hormone, will it go and act on the stomach or the kidney or somewhere else? No. Where it will go and act? It will act only in the female reproductive system, that is, it will act on the ovary. So therefore, where will the hormone receptors be present? The hormone receptors will be present on the cell membrane of the ovary. So this particular hormone will go and bind only on the ovary. It will not go and bind anywhere in other parts of the organ, because in other parts of the organs, their membrane will not have the hormone receptor that is specific for this particular follicular stimulating hormone. So now, follicular stimulating hormone should act on the ovary. So therefore, on the cell wall of the ovary, the particular hormone receptor which is capable of receiving the that is follicular stimulating hormone will be present. Therefore, when the follicular stimulating hormone is released, that will go and bind onto the receptors that are present on the cell membrane of the ovary. Now, a response will get created. The second step is the creation of the response. So, now a response is being created. This will study in detail in the coming slides here. So, now we have understood the hormone receptors. Where are they present? The hormone receptors present on the cell membrane of the target cells, and they are called as the membrane bound receptors. And the receptors that are present, in some cases what happens, the receptors will not be present on the cell membrane of the target cell, but instead they will be present inside the cell tissues itself or inside the target cell, and therefore those receptors that are present inside the target cells are called intracellular receptors, and they are mostly nuclear receptors because they are present in the nucleus. So there are two types of receptors. Understand, here we are talking about how do the hormones target a particular organ. So hormones do not target any organ that they want in general, but a particular hormone is subject to target a particular cell or organ itself. How? By making use of the hormone receptors present in them. So these hormone receptors can be located either on the cell membrane, or in some of the organs they can be located inside the organ, which is called as the intracellular receptor, and inside the cells of the organ. And where exactly? In the nucleus. So inside the cell means in the nucleus they will be present. Therefore, they are also called as the nuclear receptors, and because they are present in the nucleus. So next what happens? Now they can either detect. So if the hormone receptor is present on the cell membrane, the hormone will go and bind on the cell membrane. If the hormone receptor is present inside the cell, in the nucleus of the cell, then it will go and bind there. So what will happen next? The binding of the hormone to the receptor will take place. This will lead to the formation of a hormone receptor complex. So now once the binding has occurred, it will form a hormone receptor complex. Now what this hormone receptor complex will do next, we shall look into. So each of this receptor, as I told you, they are specific to only one hormone. Say for example, I took the example of follicular stimulating hormone here. So if the follicular stimulating hormone is released, means the receptor present on the ovary is only meant to accept follicular stimulating hormone. No other hormone will get accepted apart from that. So therefore, they are very, very specific in nature, and this hormone receptor complex that is formed. How was the hormone receptor complex formed? The hormone went and bound to the hormone receptor, therefore forming a hormone receptor complex. So this formation of the hormone receptor complex, it will bring about a lot of biochemical changes in the target tissue. and therefore the target tissue metabolism and physiological functions all will get regulated by the hormones. So now what they will do is various biochemical responses will get triggered, and these biochemical responses in turn will bring about certain physiological responses. Say for example, what are the different biochemical responses? They might lead to the generation of certain other hormones such as the messenger cyclic AMP, that is nothing but adenosine 3,5 monophosphate and certain calcium ions, and these adenosine 3,5 monophosphate and calcium ions in turn they will further carry out the biochemical process, and that biochemical process once completed it will stimulate the physiological process of the ovary, wherein it will stimulate the ovary growth, because the main function of FSH is to stimulate the growth of the ovary so that the Graafian follicle, that is a matured follicle that is there, that can get ruptured. So this is how the process will occur. So they bring about, once the target hormone receptor complex is formed, they bring about various biochemical and physiological changes in that particular target organ. So this is how actually the hormone mechanism occurs. So next, moving further, so on the basis of their chemical nature, hormones are divided into different groups. So they are divided into peptides, polypeptides, protein hormones, etc. Say for example, insulin, we have glucagon, the pituitary hormone, the hypothalamic hormones, etc. And they are divided as steroids, for example, cortisol, then testosterone, estradiol or estrogen, progesterone, all these are the steroid hormones. And there are iodothyronins. Iodothyronins means, the name itself says, they make use of iodine for the thyronin to get produced. So therefore iodothyronins are nothing but the thyroid hormones. Next, there are certain amino acid derivatives such as the epinephrine hormone. So on the basis of the chemical composition and the nature, how they act upon and all that, the hormones are divided into peptides, polypeptides, protein hormones, steroid hormones, iodothyronins and amino acid derivatives. Next, moving further, we shall continue with the mechanism of the hormone action. So the hormones which interact with the membrane bound receptors, they do not enter the target cell. That is true, right? They don't have to enter the target cell. Why? Because their receptors are present in the membrane, cell membrane itself. So directly they can go and bind on the cell membrane, and on the cell, from the cell membrane itself, they can act on the target cells. So therefore, these hormones which interact with the membrane bound receptors, they will not enter into the target cells, but instead they will generate a secondary message, which is nothing but, say for example, cyclic AMP, IP3, CA2+, all that, such messages will be generated, and these messages are the ones which regulate the cellular metabolism, regulate the biochemical process and the physiological process. So AMP is adenosine 3,5 monophosphate, then we have inositol triphosphate, then calcium ions, all that will get triggered. Now they are the carriers of messages. They will carry the messages, bringing about the biochemical responses and the physiological responses. And we had seen in the previous slide, that is the diagram, how they stimulate the ovary to grow properly. So that is about the action of the hormones that are having the hormone receptor cells on the cell membrane. Now, what happens if the hormone receptor cells are present inside the cell, that is in the nucleus, we shall look into. So hormones which interact with intracellular receptors, say for example, hormones such as steroid hormones, iodothyronins, etc., they actually regulate a gene expression. Why? Because they are targeting inside the nucleus. So they are entering because their hormone receptors are present in the nucleus. In the nucleus, what is there? Chromosomes are there. In the chromosome, what is the DNA is there. In the DNA, what is the gene is there. Therefore, that a particular gene will be the one that is receiving the hormone. So therefore, they regulate the gene expression, or they regulate the chromosome function by interaction of the hormone receptor complex with the whole genome, and therefore they bring about various biochemical actions, and these biochemical actions in turn will result in physiological actions, and therefore bring about the developmental effects in that particular target organ. So what happens here? We have taken the example of estrogen. I told you estrogen is nothing but a steroid hormone, and it is a intracellular receptor hormone because its hormone receptors are present inside the cell, that is in the nucleus. So here, say for example, estrogen, which is a steroid hormone. So these estrogen, will it go and bind on the cell membrane? No. Why will it not go and bind there? Because there on the cell membrane, they do not have the hormone receptors. Where are their hormone receptors present? Their hormone receptors are present inside the cell in the nucleus. So in the nucleus, it is present inside the cell. So here, what these estrogens will have to do is, they'll have to enter into the cell, reach the nucleus, and in the nucleus here, this particular DNA strand, somewhere on the DNA strand, they will have the hormone receptor present. So they will go and bind to the hormone receptor. Once they bind to the hormone receptor, they will get activated. Then the mRNA strand will be produced. That mRNA strand will produce various types of proteins. That proteins will participate in various biochemical reactions. Those biochemical reactions will bring about various physiological responses, therefore help in the proper growth and development and differentiation of the tissue. So this is the difference between how the hormones act when their receptors are present on the cell membrane, and how the hormones act when their receptors are present inside the cell membrane, that is in the nucleus. So this is about the mechanism of hormone action. So this was about the session wherein we studied about the different hormones that are secreted by the gonads, that is the male testes and the female ovary, and also we studied about the hormones secreted by the organs such as the heart, the kidney and the gastrointestinal tract, and also we learned the mechanism of the hormone action, wherein how the mechanism of hormone action occurs if the hormone receptors are present on the cell membrane, and how the hormone reaction occurs, a mechanism occurs if the hormone receptors are present inside the cell, that is in the nucleus. So this was about the session. With this, the complete chapter comes to an end. Thank you.